All right, so Joe Biden has committed to forgiving student loans. Again, what the exact number is, I don't know. I've heard numbers as low as 10,000, as high as 50,000. But again, I wanted to talk about the general concept of college debt forgiveness. So this is from Buck Sexton here, and he says college debt forgiveness Biden's team is planning is just paying off mostly white liberal voters from their third tier colleges with worthless humanities degrees. It's a transfer of wealth from welders, plumbers, and general contractors to adjunct professors and MSNBC watchers. Now, again, number one, it is a wealth transfer from largely right wingers to largely left wingers because who are the kind of people that go to college the most? It's left wingers, and who are the one that go the least? It's right wingers. Now, again, if you're comparing it directly, another thing that's never talked about when it comes to this concept is that the majority of student loans are actually held by rich people. This is something, and not to mention too, the majority of student loans are from grad degrees, right? So this is something that a lot of people probably don't understand, and what the left and the people that are pushing this think is that they're pushing it as something that, oh, it's going to help the poor and the downtrodden, when in reality, on average, it isn't. Like, it's on average, it's helping out the wealthy people. Now, again, when people hear wealthy, everybody has kind of a different definition of it. Obviously, if you have a family that's worth, tens of millions of dollars, then yeah, they're going to be able to afford to just pay outright to send their kid to college. But if you're some, I mean, you look at to get a grad degree, you're looking at least $250,000, probably upwards of 500,000 from some of these colleges, maybe even more for all we know, or all I know. I don't even want to guess how much it would be to get a grad degree from some of these big name schools. Um, and again, if it, what people don't realize is that yeah, you may come from a wealthy family, but how many families have hundreds of thousands of dollars just laying around, right? Like, you got to be pretty wealthy to have that kind of money just laying around, right? You could have a net worth well into the millions of dollars, but again, you don't have that money just laying around. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is that when it comes to debt forgiveness, it's actually on average a transfer from a wealth transfer from the middle class to the rich, right? And again, this is one of the many reasons why I don't take the left seriously, is that number one, they have so many contradictory positions, and not only that, not only are they oftentimes contradictory, they're oftentimes accomplishing the exact opposite of what they claim to be accomplishing. Like, I mean, take this for example. Again, one of the biggest things that the average person thinks of when they see the left, or one of the things they think of when they're voting for the left, is, oh, they care about the little guy, right? But in reality, they don't. They will care about the little guy if it'll benefit the left politically, but if it doesn't benefit them politically, then they could care less, right? Like, you look at the amount of private sector, largely private sector, like oil and gas workers that have lost their jobs over the last, decade or so in Alberta. They could care less about those people, but, you know, like 5-10% as many public sector workers lose their job, and it's the biggest issue in the world, right? It's entirely a political thing, right? It's entirely a political thing when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? Like, and not to mention too, there's other aspects that need to be brought up when it comes to the college thing. Um, I guess the first thing I should bring up is that, how do we fix the problem? Like, how do we fix the problem? Well, number one, um, we need to stop lying to kids about the value of a college degree, number one. Number two, we need to start calling out the universities, because, and this is another one of the many contradictions of the left, is they're so worried about, or they claim to be so worried about exploitation and crony capitalism and all this kind of stuff, and they don't care when the universities do it, right? They could care less. I mean, you look at the U of A, for example. I've seen the numbers. I don't know what the exact numbers are off the top of my head, but I forget. But it shocked me how many people worked at the U of A, that had over $250,000 salaries. And not only that, I think there was there was well into the double digits amount of people that they were making at least $500,000, right? So again, they claim to be so worried about exploitation and crony capitalism and all this stuff, but they could care less about these people who are working at universities making a ton of money, right? That they could care less, or they could care less, right? So again, this is the first thing that, and here's the thing: people complain about tuition going up so much. If you're worried about tuition going up, then you wouldn't want to forgive student loans, right? You wouldn't, because all that does is just encourage it even more. Because by forgiving student loans, what you're telling people is that, hey, go out when you're telling these kids coming out of high school, say, yeah, take out as much in loans as you want. And, if it doesn't work out, you can just, it'll be canceled, right? It'll be canceled. And what happens is that the government will just print up the money to cover the difference. And it just benefits the rich more and more because printing up money benefits the rich. I mean, people would think it may be the other way around to some extent, but no, like, because the rich make their money off this kind of stuff. Like, that's how they make their money. They're smart. They're not stupid. The poor people on average are, but that's another issue in and of itself. But again, so again, how do you fix the problem? Is number one, we have to stop encouraging so many people going to college. The vast majority of people going to college don't need to be, right? They don't need to be. And because it's so easy to get a student loan, colleges have recognized that and said, hey, um, if the kids or the potential kids coming to college can't afford it, the government will just step in and pay whatever the difference is. So we're just going to keep jacking up tuition endlessly, right? So again, if you want the cost of tuition to go down, then not only can we not do this stupid canceling loans thing, but we have to push back even further. We have to make it harder to get a student loan. We have to stop giving so much public money to these universities, right? Because the reality is that the vast majority of people who go to universities don't need to be. Like, what is the point of getting most of these degrees? What is the point? Why can't you just learn? Like, if you want to become if you want to become an accountant, for example, I bring this example up a lot. Like, why in the world do you need to go to university? Like, why can't you learn the same way that a plumber or an electrician learns? Right? And the reason why I say that is fundamentally, I get the point I'm trying to get at here is I don't see how anybody can tell me that the most timely and costly efficient way to become an accountant is to spend probably into the six figures and 4 or 5 years of your life when, like, do you honestly believe that if you got hired on and an accounting firm out of college, they couldn't teach you how to become an accountant in less than 4 or 5 years and for less than $100,000? Like, are you in? I bet you they could do it. They could cut that easily in half. I would say probably 4 or 5 times less, right? I bet you they could do it within a year, 2 years tops, and for whatever the cost of a couple years' wages would be. Like, at minimum wage, that's like 50 grand, right? You're looking at most half the money, and that's assuming they're paying you too. Like, you could work for free for that time, and they would teach you for free, right? So again, like, this is the thing I bring up too, is that there's no need for so many people to be going to college. The reason why so many people are herded into college these days is because colleges exist as much to educate people as it does to brainwash people into these socialist and leftist mindsets, right? Like, that's one of the main reasons why college exists these days. And the other reason is that the administrators and all these people working at the universities get to make insane amounts of money, right? They get to make insane amounts of money, and all they have to do is dribble their mindless garbage. Now, again, is there some things that people should be going to? You want to become an engineer? Yeah, you should probably go to college. A doctor? Yeah, you're going to need some schooling. But again, like, anything in the business world, anything in the tech world, like, why in the world do you need to be going to college? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you look at a lot of the top people in these fields, they didn't go to college. Like, and again, obviously, like, every potential tech worker isn't going to be Bill Gates or one of these kind of people, but why in the world do you need to go? It doesn't make any sense. And this is the thing too, like, if we could come up with a way that people could gain the knowledge necessary to become whatever it is they want to become. And we can do it in a cheaper or even a more timely, efficient manner. Why would we not do it? Like, I want to hear a good example for that. Why would we not want to do it? There isn't a good answer for that. The real answer is they don't want to tell you. Is that, again, the universities want to make their get their continue to get their bloated salaries. and they want to continue to brainwash people into the leftist cult, right? That's the reality behind it. Again, so when it comes to college debt forgiveness, it doesn't make any sense because I mean, for many reasons, more reasons than one can count. But I think the biggest reason is that it creates more and more of an incentive for things to continue to go their way. If this goes through, which I don't think it will, but let's just say it does, the price of tuition is going to continue to go up even further and further at an even more rapid rate because it's just going to encourage people to do this more and more. Universities will see that and say, hey, let's keep raising our prices because the government's just going to keep coming in the middle, or sorry, coming in and bailing out anyone who doesn't want to pay their loans off, and it's only going to hurt the job market even more and more, right? It's only going to hurt the job market even more and more because it's just going to hurt the middle class, right? It's just going to hurt the middle class. Um, it's like I said, that the reality behind it is that the entirety of the goal should be it has nothing to do with college. Going to college, it's a piece of paper that says that you can do something, right? Why in the world would we just not want to have the businesses directly train people, right? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Like I say, there is some jobs, yeah, you're probably going to need some secondary schooling, but most of them, it doesn't make any sense. Like when you go to become an electrician or a plumber or something like that, there's very little time spent in school. The vast majority of the learning happens from the more experienced people teaching you how to do whatever the trade is, and you slowly pick stuff up until you can do pretty much everything by yourself. If you want to become, if you want to get a trade, usually it's like 2, 3 months a year for 4 years, right? So you can become qualified enough to, do pretty much anything when it comes to this kind of stuff with a year of schooling. But when it comes to becoming something else, it takes 4 years, 5 years. Now, again, some of these things are a little bit more complex, but um, it's not that much. It's not 3 or 4 times more complex, right? That doesn't make any sense. I don't think becoming an accountant or something like that is any more complex than becoming an electrician or a plumber or something like that, right? So I think the reality behind, and not to mention too, I think it's another thing too that the system has been like this for so long that people just don't want to change. They're so used to it being this way that they just accept it, right? Like they just accept it. And it's exactly like I said, that if we could come up with a system to where we could get these people educated and qualified enough to do whatever the job is, and do it either or, in a more timely efficient or a more costly efficient way. Why would we not want to do it? Like why not? And I think it's very obvious that we could come up with ways of doing it. The reality, like I said, is the colleges and the universities desperately don't want that, right? And not to mention too, all the people that have these degrees desperately don't want that either, because that's just another sign that their degree is completely worthless. Like this is the problem these days, that um, I mean, in a nutshell, I guess, to sum it up, what is the solution here? Well, the solution here is, I mean, we can't fix the past, right? You can't go back in the past and change things. So we have to decide, okay, what's going to change things in the future? And the way to change things is to number one, stop telling so many people to go to college, right? Because the majority of people going to college don't need to be. Number two, we got to stop giving so much public money to these universities, because that's one of the main reasons why tuition is so high. And number two, stop requiring all these stupid rules and regulations. Like I said, like let's let businesses train people to become whatever it is. And not to mention too, I think one of the other big problems too is like I always bring up, is mass immigration, right? Like one of the reasons why you need a degree for so many jobs these days, where the reality is that you really don't need a degree, is because the job market is so competitive, and because of that, wages are lower, because if there's more people wanting to do the job, chances are there's people willing to do it for cheaper. And number two, if there's more people wanting to do a job, then the people doing the hiring are going to be more picky, which it's like, oh yeah, you don't actually need a degree, but we're going to require one anyway, because we know that if we don't, there's going to be hundreds or thousands of applications, right? Um, so again, that's this one thing that I think the entire system's completely backwards. And I think that there's a lot of people that benefit from having it that way, right? There's a lot of people that benefit from having it that way, which is why the solution is always more of the same. Like this is one of the many reasons why society has gone so sideways over the last whatever amount of time it is you want to even say, because most people's solutions to problems is simply double down on what caused the problems in the first place. And that's the biggest problem. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that. Again, appreciate any support I can get, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more.